All right, we're on? Yeah. Hey, everyone. Welcome. I did a brief intro earlier, but we had some technical difficulties. But welcome to episode 10 of Click Again, Brefos. My episode 10 today is with Christopher Sharp. I'll do a brief intro again. He's a journalist, and he's the founder and editor-in-chief of Liberation Times, which is a news website that focuses everything on like UAP, the UAP topic, everything that's going on. If you saw this intro already, bear with me. Christopher deserves it. He's awesome. I've been following him for a couple of years, and Liberation Times specifically, and his Twitter, which I urge you guys to follow if you are interested in this topic at all. But Christopher's really good at connecting the dots, especially with government things, the U.S. government, and what's going on. He has a great article, which I want to talk to him about the Vatican and UFOs, and how the Vatican's actually been researching them for a long time, which a lot of people might not know. But without further ado, let's try to get Christopher on here this time and see if it works. Let's see. Come to me, Christopher. Appear before me. There he is. How you doing, man?
Yeah, it seems to all be working now. Apologies. This is my son here. He won't sleep, and he's too excited. But
that's fine.
Yeah, you excited?
Yeah.
Man.
Absolutely. So I'm just getting my phone. Cool.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you very much. It's difficult, just balancing everything really. My daughter was born in June, and so now I've got two kids, and we have to tag team, and it's difficult just balancing everything, It's the struggle is real.
So you mean so you're a dad with two kids, and you are also trying to follow this UAP topic and make money and make a living, and it's just I don't know how you do it, man. I don't know how you write all these articles and
Thank you. Yeah, I have a career in comms as well on top of that, and it's it's really difficult, really difficult,
Yeah.
So I just try my best, That's all we can do. Hey, Linky.
Yeah.
Say hi.
What's your name?
Lincoln. What's your name?
Lincoln, and I'm 6 years old, and I was born in June the 23rd.
Yes, you are.
Whoa, okay. Awesome.
Two June babies, hey?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you. It's one of a kind interview. It's not often I do an interview with my son. So, it's a different one, isn't it?
Dude, it's rad. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know it's late there.
That's all right.
So, we can go for however long you want to go, but I mean, there's just so much to talk about. I just
go for it. Jump in.
Can we let's just jump in. So let's just talk about Liberation Times real quick. So you basically just started this, and I think this is what I think happened. Your work is so good that everyone's just like, who is this guy? And now you've done such a great job that you've gained quite the following, and rightly so, because people like Ross Coulthart, investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, is reposting you, posting about you, telling everyone to focus on your work. So I'm sure that is a tremendous feeling. I've seen you grow. I just want to know how you got into it. Why'd you start it?
Yeah. I mean, literally, I just quit my job, and I was like on 3 months gardening leave, and I'm like, I'm quite bored at the moment. I need to do something. So I thought I'd start up a website, and actually one of my family members, Paul Godoy, he's here right now, and I think he remembers actually when I was at his place, and I was like, yeah, I need to start a website. What should we do? And yeah, it doesn't seem that long ago actually, you know. And at first, I didn't really know what I wanted to focus on, but I guess UAP was, you know, what I was becoming interested in. So yeah, that's really how it went. Really, just
were you interested in it before? Were you interested?
Yeah,
in it
yeah,
before?
absolutely.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was interested in the topic before, so when I was younger, I used to watch documentaries and everything, and I always took an interest in it. And then obviously you had Joe Rogan with Bob Lazar, that was awesome as well, and Jeremy Corbell's movie, and okay. And yeah, there was so much coming out, and the phenomenon, and it just seemed to all, you know, it just seemed to all come together, you know. And I think with the pandemic, COVID-19, you know, that was really like a black swan moment, you know. So yeah, it all came together from that, really. You okay?
Yeah.
Too.
You come this way, Linky.
See in there? That's fine. Yeah, we could see you. I can see your. Yeah, there you go, right there.
Yeah. There we go.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't into UAPs before the 2017 New York Times thing. And then I've told people this before, but like when Tom DeLonge was on Joe Rogan, I was kind of like, I kind of laughed about it. I was like, oh, poor guy, you know. And then all this stuff started to happen that was like, oh, what's going on here, you know? And so you've been into it a long time. So you were already like, you know, probably had so much information, more information, or more of a, you know, a trail to follow than someone like I, you know, would have. But you know, it's what, like, with Liberation Times, like it's grown so much, but like, what are you focusing on right now? Like what's in your focus right now? Is it mainly the U.S. government and what we're doing, or like, I mean, it should be, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we are living through historic times here. And like I wrote in my article, everyone is positioning themselves, well, everyone who's advocating for this, let's say, is positioning themselves and aligning themselves with history, because I think we're embarking on a very, very important moment. And let's just say the National Defense Authorization Act will be very interesting this year. There may be more amendments to it, more changes, but I'm hoping that we get to a position whereby next year, I hope, and this is my current assessment, by the way.
Okay.
I will let you know if it changes. That I think next year we should have confirmation that an aerospace contractor or some other institution, let's say, has materials or a craft of unknown origin, or if we're really pushing the boat out here, non-human origin. So that's my current assessment. Let's see if it happens. But I think it's been heading in this trajectory for a long time, just to get private contractors, you know, for example, Lockheed Martin, a way to actually kind of get more people working on this technology. Because at the moment, such is the security classification to work on these programs. You know, if you're a scientist or engineer, if you've done drugs or if you've done just like cannabis or something like that, you know, you will not be getting the security clearance to work on one of these programs. That's how strict it is. So I think it's in the best interest of some contractors. And I think the US government as well, let's say if China does have such craft as well, I think it is in their interest to get more people working on these programs. And if you read the Michael Shellenberger article about, I think it was 2010, a contractor had approached the US military stating they needed some way to get more people on these programs, then that makes sense. And look, this is a pragmatic disclosure of sorts. You know, it's happening for a reason. You know, I think there are a host of reasons. So yeah, like, there may be other stuff to do with it. You know, it's the fact that it's time. You know, you've had this analogy that it's kind of like putting rotten vegetables and fruit in the in the fridge, it starts to smell. There's various reasons, but I think one of the main reasons is basically being pragmatic about this and getting as many people to look at the craft as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I opened the last intro I did. I was talking about David Grush and like what he was saying at the UAP hearing, and he was speaking exactly what you're talking about. And since then, I thought it was very interesting about Mike Turner from Ohio. I was just wondering if you had any insight on that, about Mike Turner and like him stopping any more hearings from happening within the House.
Yes, he wields a lot of influence, Mike Turner does. Before the Republicans took control of the House, he had been promoted to vice chairman. Before, he was just a member, and he was basically minority lead, basically, on that committee. And he just suddenly got a promotion to it, meaning if the Republicans won the House, he would de facto become the next chairman. And I do believe he does wield a lot of influence with the Republicans, and especially the leadership. Can you go to Mummy and I'll pick you up, yeah? Oh my God. She wants to sleep on me. Sorry.
That's fine.
But yeah. So he does wield a lot of influence, and I can tell you that there has been Pentagon pressure to stop more oversight committee hearings from taking place for now. That also may be enough as well to blunt the drive to get a select UAP committee established as well within the House. I can't say it's all of his doing in terms of Mike Turner, but I think there is vested interest basically for them not to take place, and I think it's probably done in the name of that we can't have scrutiny of our defense industry and of the Pentagon, because it's going to do a lot of harm and damage to our country. So I think it's the name of that, but I think maybe behind the scenes there are other reasons for doing it, like vested interest with certain defense contractors. And I think it's been said before that there is a linkage between Radiance Technologies and Mike Turner. That's very interesting. I'll definitely look at that. In terms of Lockheed, I know there's these lots of people saying, well, he's a Lockheed guy and stuff like that. I mean, it doesn't really stack up too much. Firstly, when we talk about Lockheed, it's not like one big monolithic thing. There are lots of different factions and divisions within Lockheed. A lot of organizations and companies tend to have that. US government tends to have that, for example, Navy versus Army, stuff like that. It's the same with Lockheed and its divisions as well. And I point out that, I think it's 2022, Senator Schumer actually received a big contribution from Lockheed Martin, and he's the very person who's come out with the legislation, the amendment that's gone in within the National Defense Authorization Act. So it's quite complex, really. But look, the pushback is real. The pushback is very, very real. Okay, and I think it's going to intensify in the upcoming weeks and months, especially when this National Defense Authorization Act goes to conference, and you've got the House and you've got the Senate butting heads basically deciding what goes in there and stuff. So I think it's going to intensify both publicly and privately as well. And they don't want to just, and I say they, I just mean very interested in the way it's going to actually play out, and the way that it has already played out is that they don't want to just shut and muzzle Grush up. They also want people to stop reporting on it, so they'll go after Ross Coulthard and others, News Nation as well, and they'll also go after key Congress people, advocating for it as well. So it really, really is a big pushback. You should money. Are you sure?
I want to lay down something soft.
You lay down with Mummy now.
Also, I want to stay with you.
He looks tired. He looks tired, man. You should take a nap.
He does.
Go to bed. He looks tired.
Mummy's right there. Mummy's trying to entice him, and you can watch the iPad. Okay.
About Mike Turner though, like every time I've seen him in an interview talking about Grush, he's kind of just laughing and like, oh, claims, you know? And so
Yeah.
I've just that right there, just him laughing it off has already really kind of bothered me. I'm like, who is this guy? And so I started like looking into him. I started seeing like all these connections and certain things. I was like, oh, you know, I wonder if Chris knows more about, you know, him and what he's been up to, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd also point out as well that there's a very, very interesting. There's also a very interesting picture as well where Grush is actually pictured with General Neil McCasland. He's pictured with Neil McCasland.
Yeah.
He's gone to mummy now. He's pictured with Neil McCasland, who some people would suggest is the person, you know, who is one of the creators behind this whole disclosure and advocacy movement we are now. So I found that quite interesting. But yeah, like David Grush told Liberation Times that you know, what happened was that the Intelligence Committee was actually briefed. Both the House and the Senate Intelligence Committee were briefed by Grush. I mean, these are very long sessions. We're talking about, like, I think around 10 hours or something like that maybe, where Grush was actually briefing staffers of these committees. And what's happened is Mike Turner, being the chair, it doesn't appear that he's actually asked for information in regards to those briefings from David Grush, nor has he tried to attempt to establish contact with David Grush to find out more about, you know, the allegations. Instead, what he's done, he's preemptively, basically, without having much knowledge of what's going on, so he's got plausible deniability, let's say, he's basically gone onto these shows and just kind of like poo-poo what David Grush has, you know, alleged. And I think that's really suspect, you know. And like I've said before, you know, this isn't just a question of like, you know, are UAPs real? Or are we alone in the universe? I mean, for a lot of members of Congress, you know, it's also kind of like, well, actually, this is a matter of democratic oversight. Without democratic oversight, you don't have a functioning democracy. And when you get politicians trying to thwart their efforts, basically, to find out the truth behind this, then you have to think, well, that's pretty suspect. And, you know, it will raise potential questions around possible corruption as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. And I think for now, I think we can see the Senate possibly playing the lead until the situation in the House gets resolved.
Yeah, I have this pulled up too, but one of your articles I posted this was from January. It's the Vatican and UFOs that you wrote. I love that article because I just again, like, you just break everything down really well, but there's a part in it where you talk about Galileo. And I know that Avi Loeb from Harvard, you know, he's brought up, I mean, he has the Galileo project, but he brings up Galileo a lot, especially in the way that you do in this article. But it's basically just talking about how, you know, Galileo was talking that, you know, our Earth orbits around the sun, and the church is like, you know, like, silence him, put him in jail, like, shut this dude up. You know, even though he's right. And, you know, I've heard this from so many people, especially like Lil Zondo, and I just keep hearing this phrase over, or this, you know, this over and over, that from different people, Danny Sheehan, Peter Levenda, obviously Tom DeLonge, they're connected. All these people are connected. But like that religious people leadership is blocking UAP research because they think it might be demonic or satanic. And we heard that from Lou with Gary Reed, that is now gone, you know? And I was just wondering, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if you're religious or not, and I'm not trying to, like, you know, talk shit on religion or anything. I'm just saying, if it's blocking, if that's what's going on, if there's this leadership, because, you know, like, obviously, like, Mike Turner is very, very Christian, and he's trying to make some very religious amendments right now. There's somebody named Tommy Tuberville. He's from Alabama, I believe. Let me say, I think I wrote it down, Tommy Tuberville. But he's also, like, right now, he's blocking military promotions from happening because of his kind of like religion So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that, because you wrote that article and I saw so many connections to that, and I just want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, good question. I think as well with religion, it's so dependent on everything. You know, it's so nuanced. You know, like for instance, you know, one of the biggest drivers behind this is Marco Rubio. He's a very, very religious person as well, and I can tell you that a lot of people involved in the advocacy of, you know, UAP, a lot of them are very religious as well, and they're advocating for the cause. But you know, it works both ways, doesn't it? And you know, you've got Collins Elite, for example, and you know, the U.S. Air Force is very religious too, and all these other various factions, basically, that may not want to have this information out because they do think it's demonic, you know, and I don't know if it plays as big role as it used to. I don't think they're as powerful as they used to. I think it was more the older guard, from my understanding anyway, that seemed to have these religious beliefs and were thwarting, you know, possible disclosures. I don't know if that's true so much anymore. In terms of the Vatican Church, now, that's very, very interesting because when the 1933 alleged crash happened in Verdiante, which is outside of Milan, you have to imagine the scene at the time in terms of being in 1930s Italy. Not only do you have a landscape where, you know, you have Podestas, basically, which is like the lead fascist authority, you know, leading the local towns. And actually, we reported in the Daily Mail that, you know, someone whose great-grandfather was a Podesta, basically nearby, claimed that, yeah, there was a crash that occurred, and it looked like it being covered up, basically. So, you know, you've got that, and also you've got another angle as well, whereby the church to this day even plays such a vital role in everyday life relating to Italy, basically, and that would be the Catholic Church. So, you know, I was told that if anyone was going to know about the crash that occurred the alleged crash that occurred in 1933, it was going to be the, you know, the Podesta, the local military, and it would have been the local priest as well, and the church that would have known about it. And it just so happens that the allegation is that during the war, the Vatican informed the Americans that there was this facility and there was this craft, which potentially was of non-human of nature, that the Italians possessed. And I mean, from my understanding, it's no one really knows the exact facility, but there is a suspected facility, basically, I think in the Lombardy region. It's not too far away from the alleged crash site. And basically, like, I need to find the name. Sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was a facility, and it does exist. It's basically, it was like an aircraft hangar there, and it was a facility for aircraft. And the whole of the area was absolutely flattened during the war by the Allies, except from this one facility. And I remember actually going on to a reviews page on Google into this facility, because it's now a museum, actually, for the Italian Air Force. And one person who'd gone on there for a tour said, you know, you should ask the tour guides why, despite everything else being flattened during the Second World War, this facility was untouched. So you do get interesting things like that, you know. And yeah, if that is true, look, you have the Vatican with knowledge of that, and I think that's really, really crucial to this. And like you were saying as well, you know, Galileo, and you know, because for a long time, you know, they took the Aristotle way of seeing the Earth, center of the universe, and that didn't end up being true, basically, and it was a huge threat to the church's authority, with Galileo basically claiming these things. And I tend to think at the moment, we kind of like, and even scientists, I think I was watching a scientist on Joe Rogan the other day, actually, and he was basically like making the case that, well, humanity might be alone. It might just be us. There might not be any aliens. And there seems to be this case, that people just tend to think at the moment that humanity is the center of the universe. And everything else revolves around it. We're the only intelligent. That strikes me as kind of like being kind of like a pre-Galileo belief. And I think you can draw some parallels to that. But in actual fact, the situation you might have is you could even have a potential scenario whereby there are non-human intelligences, let's say, and they're competing against each other. They're in a civil war, Cold War type situation, perhaps. And humanity is just in between. We don't really mean a lot, we're just there. And it's interesting, you go back to the ancient Greek myths and traditions, you go back to the creation story, every creation story, or most creation stories, has humanity at the center, God created humanity. Well, actually, if you look at the Greek, myths and creation stories, humanity really isn't that important, it's all about the gods and about them that are the main stars of the show. Humanity, we're just there, we're not as important, we're kind of like a sideshow. I just found that, I find that parallel quite interesting, and it does go against how we think about ourselves. And I do think that, even though most people in the Western world don't really think of themselves as a lot of people nowadays, especially in England, they think of themselves as Christian. Despite that, we still kind of have this Christian mindset from our values and everything that we kind of like. It's how we look at the world, through morals and stuff like that. You see the Me Too movement and everything like that, and. We get people standing up for those who are vulnerable, like when it comes to kind of like charity, for instance, as well, that's something in Western cultures is very, very important. It's in a lot of other cultures, but that's just basically saying that we need to look out for the weak. If you look at a pre-Christian world, like in the Roman time, it was very much strong survival of the fittest. It was the strong who were thought as the highest in society, and the weak were just kind of like trampled upon in many instances, you can see accounts, from Plato's time, whereby it was completely normal to throw an unwanted baby out on the street, and let them die, basically. And that was something that would have possibly been normal. And, we just don't do that in this world. I think sometimes we underestimate just how important Christianity was just to transforming the way that we actually look at the world for everyday life. We just kind of take it for granted. And I feel that in a way, like in terms of going back to the creation story, I still think, despite maybe some scientists not seeing themselves as Christian and impartial, I still think that kind of like plays an influence there, like humanity at the center of everything. Yeah, sorry, that was a long tangent.
No, it's great, man. It's great. I loved it, man. It's great. Yeah, I mean, I came from a very Christian background, and I left in my early 20s, and I've spoken about it a lot, but so this was hard for me to get into too, because I kind of left something that I was really, really into, and then I was like, there's probably nothing else weird. This is probably just, we're here, then we're gone, and that's it, And then when the UAP thing kind of, when the 2017 article came out, I remember deciding that me and my wife had, and certain other weird things that happened in my life, and I'm like, okay, so if that's not, what is that? And it, that wasn't human. So I'm not saying it's an angel or a demon. I'm not saying it's a alien. I don't know what it is. I still don't know what it is. But it just opened my mind up a little more. And then when I started try to research more about UAP, what I kept coming back to is just all these military people that have been coming forward since like the 40s. And so that's the thing that kind of bugs me now, is just like people talking about David Grush, like, well, haven't anyone come out since or before David Grush? And if you go back through history, it's so many people, like crazy credentials, like, you know, generals, whatever, just from whatever department, and they're all coming forward. It's like what Ross Coulthart, his book In Plain Sight. It's like, this has been in plain sight this whole time.
Yeah.
What the hell is this, you know? But sorry, I'm going on my tangent now, Christopher.
No, that's absolutely fine. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's the worst kept secret ever, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, a lot of people are talking about it, but people just like, they don't see it as serious, and it never ends up going anywhere. You know, people like do an interview. They used to do that in the past. Used to make these allegations, just be quite credible, but without any momentum, without any political support, basically, you can't really do anything about it, can you?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I you know, and coming from that world, I kind of like can look at the UAP. I mean, coming from the world of you know, being from, you know, I went to a church since I was like, you know, a baby until, you know, my early 20s, and basically like now, so I know kind of how people would look at this, you know, and see like, oh, it could be evil, it could be whatever, but I'm just wondering like if that's true, again, to bring this up about the old guard, or like these super old generals or commanders or something that might really think this is satanic, or if they learn some stuff about what this is, and that might have changed their own belief about what Christianity might is or is not, and maybe that's why they don't want to, you know. Another thing, sorry, I know I'm going off on this. The old guard. One more thing about the old guard. So I know, so Lou has brought that up. Lou Elizondo has brought it up, the old guard term, and this, I want you to pay attention to this guy if he's not on your radar. But this guy, Tommy Tuberville, okay, from Alabama that I brought up, right now he's holding, 301 officers that are supposed to be promoted into like really big positions. He's not letting them. He has the say if they can be appointed. So we have all these older guards, right? And now we have all these guys that are supposed to, men and women that are badasses, and they're supposed to be appointed. But he's holding them from getting promoted. So none of them can right now, unless there's a change in law for like reproductive rights and stuff from the Pentagon. So that to me too is like, that's a religious dude that's stopping 301 new people from coming in. And I'm wondering if it's like, oh, there's an old guard, 301 people come in that are, you know, men and women that have different beliefs, different religions, and they start learning about what's in here that's like classified information, you know. I don't know. I'm not trying to get all conspiracy or whatever, but it just seems like there's some connections here that I'm like, what is going on here, you know? So
yeah, it's a valid point. You know, a lot of politicians do act on behalf of the people who feed them, you know. So if they give them donations, if they support them, you know, they're going to act in their interest. You know, I think with Mike Turner, a lot of the interests that he works on behalf of are those who work at Wright Patterson Air Force Base. That is his number one most important constituent.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like that's very true, you know. And but again, you know, like McCasland worked there, and he seems like an advocate, so it could be a mixed bag, you know.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get like a clear picture, you know, when it comes to complex things like that, you know, and organizations. And there's lots of nuances, aren't there?
Yeah, no, it's a lot. I want you to can I talk to you too a little bit about just like your speculation now with what you've known. I know it sucks to talk about, so I think it's fun sometimes, but like I'm kind of like you know, I think Jeremy Corbell talked about it with Chris Cuomo last week on their that podcast is awesome. If you guys, I'll put a link to it. But he was just saying the techno-terrestrial or something, like I think where he's saying it's like AI or maybe we created AI that, you know, or another race created AI, and maybe it's you know, that's what's here, and it's not actually an extraterrestrial. It might just be technology. But so like, what are you going for extraterrestrial? What are you thinking? What's in your Your thoughts? What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, like Jeremy, you know, I haven't found anyone yet who basically says, we know what it is, I am 100% sure. You don't really get that. I think, you know, my own speculation would be that we're dealing with something that's very, very complex, you know, and we're dealing with multiple things. Like I said before, you know, like, you know, if you're a Syrian, you know, who has no access to the media at all, like you're a farmer basically, and you see jets up in the sky, it doesn't necessarily have one origin, you know, like you could have some which are from Russia, you could have some which are from the US, some which may be from France, and, you know, it could be a complex picture, you know, and then, you know, imagine having to kind of like educate this person who doesn't really know much about the world outside, you know, what America is, what Russia is, you know, what France is, why they're there, what's the complexity behind that, what's the diplomatic relations, and why are they at conflict, and whose interests they're acting on behalf of. It's very, very complicated, you know, and I feel like that's part of what's going on. And I think something that was missed by some people was the fact that Ryan Graves recently has come out and said that it seems as though, according to pilots, commercial pilots who are seeing a lot of these UAP, it seems as though they're dogfighting. It looks like that in terms of their movements, and I wouldn't be surprised, let's say, that if some of the alleged crashes were due to conflict situations, them shooting at each other basically, that wouldn't surprise me in terms of there being crashes. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, if they're so advanced and stuff, why do they crash here? That might be a very, very good explanation, you know. And it could be that, you know, you have something which is, you know, you see them coming out of the ocean, for instance. So it could be that you have something that originates from this earth. Maybe we're not top dog if there's something advanced coming from the ocean. And look, you know, an office of the Director of National Intelligence source told my colleague from the Daily Mail, Josh Boswell, that there is footage that the Arrow may hold, which basically shows objects going through the water at high speed without creating any waves at all or any disturbance to the water. So you could have a situation like that whereby you have something which is kind of ultra-terrestrial, I guess. But, you know, it could be a situation where they're competing against, let's say, something that is... Sorry, I'm just moving my camera. I need to charge my phone. But you could have a situation where they're potentially in conflict with another intelligence, you know, and that might not be from this earth. It might be from somewhere else, you know. So that's definitely something which is interests me.
Yeah.
But it could be beyond that as well. You know, you might have other intelligences as well, and there may be other factors. You know, I like the analogy that Lou Elizondo once basically stated, saying that, you know, like humanity is very, very warring in terms of our history. You know, we're very, very violent. We kill each other, and it might be kind of like an analogy whereby we're the gorilla, you know, at the zoo, and we've been kept in the cage, and now we've found the keys to get out of the cage. The keys being nuclear technology, because, you know, once you discover the secrets of the atom, you may be a few steps from actually getting into intergalactic space travel, or something like that. It might be something like that. So maybe we suddenly become a potential threat to whoever they are, and they might want to put us back in the box. And it's quite funny, actually. I saw Stephen Greer interview the other day, and he basically was saying, yeah, they're all love and peace, it's all kumbaya and stuff like that with these ETs. They're all so nice. He was like, you know, it's humanity that is the actual threat. And I think he used something along the lines that they might want to put us back in a box, you know, if we keep shooting at them or something like that, or if we don't change our ways. So it's quite funny because, like, you know, if you use those two analogies, it could be that, you know, Lou and Stephen aren't very far off in terms of their beliefs, in terms of what this might be. So, yeah, and again, like, it's another analogy would be I think is it North Sentinel Island, which is off the coast of India, and it's kind of like a warlike tribe basically, and anyone who steps on it basically gets killed by these savages. Well, you know, these savages, let's say, they live life every day, most likely not knowing that they are the property of India in terms of, you know, they're a territory of India, basically. So they probably don't know that because the Indians just leave them alone. But what the Indians do, for example, if these people suddenly discovered the nuclear bomb? That would be quite disturbing for the Indians and the world, actually, wouldn't it? And I mean, if you had a situation like that, then you would, you know, you could have it where India was like, okay, we need to step in, you know, we need to stop these people from getting the nuclear bomb. So I don't know, there's always speculation like that, you know. So it's fun to speculate, right? But at the moment, I think one of the big things is just seeing like what it actually is. You know, we could have all types of origin, and I think like one of the major things is the fact that it could be Chinese or Russian. Mm-hmm. Look at the February shootdowns, for instance. You know, there was a real big domain awareness gap there with the US, basically. And there's been various kind of like events whereby you have UAPs spotted near nuclear installations, you know. By ignoring that due to the stigma of being like, oh, it's a UFO, it's aliens, we don't want to get involved with that, you know. You could basically be leaving a really big domain awareness gap there, which Russia or anyone else could exploit, you know, because, you know, if I wanted to kind of like, if I was China or Russia, you know, and I wanted to really exploit a domain awareness gap, you know, I'd probably, you know, create craft which exhibit similar characteristics to UAP. And, you know, I'd send them to the UK or Russia, and, you know, it would comfort me that, you know, there was such a stigma and that pilots may likely turn the other way, you know. So there's all sorts of things, and this is why the topic is so important. And, you know, not to say everything is Chinese or Russian, you know, there are sources of mine that basically say there is evidence showing that these craft are actually coming from space. But, you know, my train of thought is always the same, you know, let's verify if that's correct. Mm-hmm. And I think this is why we're going through this process in Congress at the moment.
Yeah, I think Christopher Mellon has also talked about like, hey, I think the public can see some of these satellite images of these things coming from space. And so it's like, you know, it's, we're all waiting for that, you know, I'm sure. You know, you're waiting for that. We're all waiting to finally see something like super clear, super HD. Yeah, I hope that. I mean, I've been hearing that that's coming soon too from a lot of people, but it's always been soon, right? But so were the three first videos. You know, we were all waiting for that, just some type of confirmation, and it finally happened. So I didn't think we were going to have hearings by 2023, and here we are, Christopher. Yeah, let me, I want to let you go pretty soon here, because I know it's late for you, but,
that's okay, no worries. You ask all the questions you want. That's absolutely fine, my friend.
Thank you. I just don't want to keep you up because I know you're a dad and you, it's late out there. So.
That's okay. The wife's got it all in hand. It's okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just wondering, what do you make of the San Marino and like, is it called Project Titan?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So Project Titan was created by a friend of mine, Paolo Guzzardi.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, you're going to ask a question. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, keep going because I didn't even know you guys were friends.
Sure.
That's really cool.
Sure. No worries.
Wait, Christopher, do you have a beverage by any chance? I always do this. I forget to. Do you have a water or anything?
I had like a breakfast. Okay. Breakfast like drink.
I'm going to cheers the camera because this is Brewfo, so I have to drink my beer. I feel like a poser, but sorry. Go ahead, your friend. Sorry.
It's my half-empty one, but yeah.
Cheers, my friend.
Well, it's not even half empty; it's almost empty. Yeah, San Marino. So that was created by my friend Paolo Guzzardi, not San Marino itself, but Project Titan. So it's basically an effort to get disclosure via the UN, basically an effort to kind of like bring all the countries together, basically looking at this. And this is following in the footsteps of Grenada which tried a similar thing under Eric Gehry, its former prime minister or president, former leader. And that happened before it was a coup, basically, to get rid of the guy. And yeah, it all transpired from that. And it's a very, very interesting history, actually, because before the pandemic, there are actually 2 conferences in Russia and China. And that was basically led by the Chinese, who've got like the biggest UFO organization in the world. Not many people know that, because like, to be like a member of like one of the Chinese UFO groups, you have to like have like a PhD. You've got to have written a paper, which has been peer reviewed, and there's all these hurdles you have to jump, and it's got like a really, really big kind of like interest in it.
Wow.
Which is really weird for a country like China. You know, like anything paranormal or anything to do with spirits and stuff like that, they ban, and for good reason as well, because you know there was a civil war in China. I cannot remember which one it was again, but it was a civil war in China. I think it was like 200 years ago, and it was like one of the bloodiest civil wars, if not the bloodiest civil war there's ever been. I think there was more lives lost, or there was a comparison certainly to the lives that were lost during the entire like World War One, basically. And that was because like one of the leaders basically believed that like he had been called by Jesus Christ to spread Christianity in China. So that's why the Chinese kind of like tend to like ban that kind of stuff, my understanding. But UFOs, it doesn't anyway. Anyway, it held these 2 conferences, the Chinese did, and the Chinese government allowed it to take place, because nothing really gets done in China about the government kind of like giving it the thumbs up, such as the control of the Communist Party. Or it's difficult anyhow, especially to hold something on this scale, you know, where people from all over the world were being flown to China basically to attend these conferences. So the attempt from the Chinese and the Russians is basically to get this topic realized, the UN, brought before the United Nations, to bring countries together. So that was the whole goal, basically. And then what happened is it basically just disappeared. A lot of people blame the pandemic for that, but it was around almost a year before the pandemic even started. So there was another reason behind that. But anyhow, Paolo Guzzardi, along with a lot of other people from different other countries, were involved in that, let's say, effort in terms of the Chinese. And a lot of those, basically, once it all fell apart with China, they started an organization called the ISA. Don't ask me what it means. It's late. But
I can look it up. I'll look it up.
Yeah. And what happened, Project Titan is basically like stemmed from the ISA, basically. So Paolo Guzzardi is like a member of the ISA, which is a UFO organization, which is global, basically, with members from all over the world. And he's also the founder of Project Titan as well. So that's the history behind it.
Yeah.
And San Marino is seen as the country of choice because the Italians are really big on UFOs, actually. And, you know, Paolo used to work for the Italian Foreign Ministry, for example. His last job was at the embassy in Berlin, but he's worked at various embassies all over the world. The guy is so intelligent. He speaks like 7 languages. It's amazing.
Wow.
It really is, like including Arabic as well. So yeah, he's the leader behind this UN effort, basically. And San Marino has already been holding like periodic or annual, UFO conferences for like about almost 20 years now, from my understanding. Roberto Pinotti, who's another well-known Italian researcher in UFOs, he's got some really good connections. I think he lives in San Marino now as well. He's got good connections with the government. So basically what they did was they said, look, you already hold these yearly conferences. Let's go one step further. Let's do a UN initiative. And, you know, now that this is all gaining traction in the US, and you know, let's make this like the Geneva of UFOs, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, San Marino went for it. The government were like, yeah, we're going to approve this. And that was a really big moment, you know. But from my understanding, at this moment, it's on hold because there's been some turmoil within the government. So I think maybe next year you might get San Marino make the official proposal before the UN, which would then have to be voted upon by other members. So yeah, that will be a really exciting moment. And if it does go ahead, you know, it will be a real global effort that brings other countries together.
Yeah. Are you in contact with him a lot? Do you guys?
Daddy.
Sorry, my son. 1 second.
That's fine.
1 moment. I'm just going to get a drink for my son. 1 moment. Sorry.
Yeah. That's fine. And remember, everyone, I'm going to put up links to stuff we're talking about. This will be up on YouTube. I'm hoping next week. It takes me a little bit to edit there. But I will put up links to everything, pictures we're talking about, so you can see faces to people that we're bringing up, have links to what we're talking about. We aren't just making this stuff up. We're not pulling it out of our, asses or whatever. So,
sorry
yeah.
about that.
No, it's
But
fine.
yeah, I'm in touch with Paolo. Paolo's a really good friend of mine. So yeah, I'll keep on asking him for updates, but he's like a real expert in terms of the 1933 case, for example, as well. And that was like something I picked up, quite a long time ago. And it was so like surreal when David Grush basically brought up that case. It was like vindicated. And yeah, it was a great moment. And my hope is actually to go to the alleged crash site and find it one day quite soon. Travel up to Milan and go on a road trip with those guys.
Oh, cool. That'd be really cool. Sweet. All right. Let me ask you. One of my friends on here, shout out to Benji. Benji had a question for me to ask you, and I wrote it down, so I want to make sure I ask it. But
Hi, Benji.
Do you know Benji? Hey, Benji.
I've seen him on here.
Yeah,
he's cool.
Very nice guy. Very nice guy. Group K. Do you know what Group K is? What is this Group K? Do you know?
I've heard of it before. I've heard of it before.
Okay.
I've got like the worst memory though, so yeah. But if you expand, I'm sure that
I don't know anything about it, but Benji told me to ask you, and I was like, I'm going to try to look it up. I tried to look it up, I couldn't find it, and he's like, well, ask Christopher. I'm like, okay, I'll ask him, but if you don't know, that's fine. It's funny because there's always a question that in my notes sometimes too, like I'll ask somebody and they're like, I don't know, and I'm like, okay, moving on. So let me.
That's okay.
Right on. So what do you think that we should be focusing on right now as individuals that are focused, or not focused, that are interested in UAP? What should we focus on? Because I've, not many people will write their senators, call their senators or whatever. We can all do that. Just be like, hey, I'm interested in this. We want more answers. Just show that there's interest. Besides that, is there anything else you think that we should all be doing individually?
Yeah, well, firstly, that is hugely important. I was speaking to Representative Luna actually on the phone just last month, and she was just saying that makes a huge amount of difference. We do really listen. And yeah, if you get in contact, your voice is heard and they pay serious attention to that. So that's really important. And I think as well, just your support for people like David and journalists reporting on this, like Ross as well, like Jeremy. That's really important. No. But, these
like
guys, and News Nation as well. News Nation, they're doing a great job because there are a lot of attacks at the moment on them saying that you should be tackling such a wacky topic and stuff like that, Yeah. And it's trying to put the genie back in the box, And I'd also say that the attacks hurt as well, if anyone, if someone's going to attack your credentials, if they're going to attack your reputation, you're not going to feel good, and you're going to feel really bad, And sometimes I think these people who are being attacked, public figures, they're having to take time out, just being like, I need to clear my head for a little while. It's all getting a bit too much, like any human being, these people go through those things as well. So I think supporting them is really, really, really a big thing, And yeah, that's a huge part to play because human emotions, they're not to be toyed with, and they do play a real part of this. I think with public figures, some people just tend to forget, that there is a real kind of like personal thing behind this, because people are giving up their personal time. There's no real money behind like this UAP stuff, like, so Ross is doing this. He's not getting paid a lot of money, Jeremy Corbell is not getting paid a lot of money. Jeremy Corbell's involved in property, that's how he makes his money. Yep. In terms of UAP, I don't even know if he's... I don't know. I don't think he makes that much at all, to be fair. Nor does he need to make that much from via UAP either, due to his success and what he does in property. But my point is that there's no real money to be made here or anything like that. And a lot of these people are just doing this basically because they believe in it. And, they think it's such an important topic to cover. So just your support really, really does matter. And I think you should be keeping your eye on other whistleblowers in the upcoming months as well, because so the whistleblowers who have had direct contact with the craft, they're very, really important. Some people are suggesting that they've already made a complaint to the intelligence community's Inspector General, Thomas Monheim. Some people already say that they've done that, but some people claim that they're about to put in the complaint. I don't know yet. So that's really, really important as well, just to kind of like look at. Hopefully they come out in the not too distant future and speak about what their experiences are. However, part of the effort to silence Grush and to kind of like attack him is also to send a message as well to those others that may come out, saying, look, if you come out, same thing's going to happen with you. We're going to go after you as well. My argument has always been that if 4 or 5 people come out at the same time and say the same thing, then there's too many targets to attack at one time, and I think it'd be quite powerful. But I'm hoping those people come out. I don't know if it's a certainty right now, but that's my one hope. But look, there's still a lot of people who would love to have their voice heard at public hearings who would be very, very powerful. I won't name anyone, but, if you kind of imagined you would love to testify, I think you'll get a good kind of feel for how it may play out in the coming months, let's say.
Awesome.
So there's that to take into account as well. And I think the main thing is the legislation, because the legislation is so key, because it potentially gives the likes of Lockheed Martin an out, basically, because if they're actually involved in illegal programs, it's very, very serious, because they've not declared it to their shareholders, for instance. So it could be a material risk. So it could be a material risk that could affect shareholders if they hold stock in. They could lose millions of dollars, basically. Or it could be the other way around as well. It could be like, you didn't tell me you had this. If I had known you had this, I would have invested a lot more. Mm-hmm. So does that take into account? And also, let's say that the company like Lockheed Martin was given lots of technologies and stuff. I think back in the 1970s, Lockheed Martin was on the brink of going bankrupt, and it was saved, basically. I think from the US government. It might be something to look into anyway. But look, imagine if they got hold of some amazing technology, but another aerospace company didn't get that technology, and then that other company basically went bankrupt and people lost their jobs. Whereas, a Lockheed Martin, let's say, because of they got that technology and they were learning things, they got even more contracts, from the back of that.
Mm-hmm.
Really good stuff, and I think that they do need legislation that will kind of come forward to cover their backs if they are potentially going to make anything that they may have public, or at least to Congress. So I think that's a really, really big thing that you should be keeping an eye on as well in terms of that legislation. And what that does mean for kind of aerospace corporations. So I think that's something to keep an eye on as well.
Okay, great. Yeah. And also for people my whole reason for Brufos too is just because I know so many people that don't know who all these ufology people are, don't know, Steve Bissett or, Peter Levenda or, they're into anybody that's involved with this, really. They'll just see it on the news and go, oh, and then, you know, keep moving on. But for people that are just getting like interested in this too, you know, I think, you know, obviously everyone, like what Christopher was just talking about, like support the journalists that are looking into this, but also like everyone's going to have to kind of like curate their own, like, you know, information, like who you're getting your information from. I feel like I'm lucky to get my information from you. I feel like I'm lucky to get my information from Ross Coulthart and, you know, people like, you know, Christopher Mellon. And, you know, there's just some type of, there's a way to the research you guys do and the way you talk about everything where it's not like, you know, it doesn't sound too, I can handle it. And I'm like, these guys are on track here. They're on the right track. So like, what I'm trying to say is just like, you know, I think what kind of pushed me away from the topic and my other people to the topic might be the whole alien or like, you know, the weird stuff behind it. So someone just getting into this, like, I'm kind of trying to be like, focus on how weird it is that we have all this data that the government's been hiding all this stuff from us. So that's already just weird in itself. If there's no aliens, if there's no craft flying around that's of non-human origin, what's this response from the government? You know, like focus on that then, because that's weird, you know?
It's incredible. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, you had Representative Gates basically stating that Eglin Air Force Base, you know, there was a large, I think it was a spherical object above the Gulf of Mexico. From my understanding as well, that object may have been docked with something under the water. Wow. And the test pilots who are out there on a training mission basically saw it, and the radar on their plane went down, and also their FLIR went down as well. So they had to manually capture an image of the object instead. And yeah, like, you know, that talks about kind of like signature management to some extent as well. The fact that they don't want people seeing, you know, they're going about their business aloofly, and they're not necessarily looking for attention, basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really interesting. Yeah, something to pay attention to. And look, the pilot was basically saying that they're discouraged to report such things.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut in there. I thought
no, that's all right. No.
I was just saying, just the bipartisan support of it's so wild to me. I think Danny Sheehan, because like Danny Sheehan, for those who don't know, he's like an attorney that's been I think he's a federal attorney, but he's worked for civil rights, and like, I mean, I'd put up his bio and it'd have to be like 3 pages. The guy's so crazy, but he's basically saying like in all of his time working as a federal attorney, like this is the craziest bipartisan, like seeing these senators like coming together on this one issue. He's never seen it before. So somebody like that saying that is just like, you know, that should catch your eye if you don't want to, you know, think about things flying in the air or whatever, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. Approach this like as any other scandal, basically. Like, you know, the DoD, certain factions within the DoD have fought against this tooth and nail, basically. Reports are discouraged by the US Air Force. Videos classified. We know that to be true. So forget aliens and stuff like that, you know, just ask yourself, why are they doing that? And if you have no oversight from, you know, Congress, from elected members, who, you know, well, isn't that a problem for democracy, you know, in general, if they don't have oversight of what's actually going on? In the US doesn't have air superiority over its own skies. I mean, you guys as, you know, US citizens, don't you deserve to know that? So then action could be taken perhaps to remedy the problem, whether it's Chinese, Russia, or whoever knows what it is, you know. So I think these are key questions, you know. I would just like say, like, you know, if you're coming into this topic, just go into it, for example, just thinking, okay, it could be Chinese, it could be Russian, let's just find out, let's verify. Like with David Gross's allegations, he's making these allegations that there could be retrieval and reverse engineering programs. Now, he has provided to the Inspector General of Intelligence that he's provided locations and names associated with those programs. So let's just verify it. Let's not judge it. Let's not just do a Mike Turner and say, oh, I don't think it's true, blah, blah. That's not the logical thing to do. The logical thing is, even if you don't want to speak publicly about it, get your head down and just verify it. How do we verify it? This is what you need to do. And that is the logical thing to do, whether you believe it or not. If you don't believe it, you'd be like, okay, we need to verify it, then we can put a stop to this nonsense, if you believe it's nonsense, that is. If you do believe it, be like, we need to know that, we need to verify it right now, because the American people and the global public needs to know. So, there are two trains of thoughts about this, and, like Marco Rubio was saying as well, either like all the top intelligence people in the US, who've got high clearances, are highly educated, either all of them become completely mad and are making insane allegations about, a cover-up involving non-human intelligence, potentially, or it's true. Either way, we need to find out. We need to find out if there is a cover-up of this source, or we need to find out if all the intelligence community has gone collectively mad to a certain extent. So either way, like, how can this not be a big story, and I happen to take this from the side of the whistleblowers, and I make no apologies for that. I see it as a potential scandal, but it actually is a scandal, from my understanding, and I take the side of the whistleblowers. That's how I've always gone about reporting this. So, I think hopefully we should find some more revelations soon coming out, which will be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to it. I actually, since I've started this show here on here, I've had some friends and family like send me texts like, oh, I saw something, and it was crazy, and I'm like, oh, okay, but like people I didn't even know were interested are starting to get interested, and obviously everything just blew up after that hearing. More interest. I thought it'd be even more than what's going on, but there's a lot going on, man. The war in Ukraine is still going on. Everything, like all these fires and hurricanes and everything that keeps happening around, like people are, you have kids, there's people with families, you know what I mean? Like they got to do stuff. Like it's hard for them to pay attention to something that they don't think affects them directly. But that gets me to my next thing is just, I have to go there. But Lou Elizondo and Tom DeLonge have both said, Lou said that if the, the world knew what he knew, somber is the word he thinks of, right? It was somber. Mm-hmm. Tom DeLonge said when he found out about stuff, it kept him up for like 2 or 3 nights, right? That's something that bugs me. It bothers me because I just want to know why would Lou say somber and why would Tom be kept up at night? So I'm wondering if it is going to be something where it's like these things have been so compartmentalized, like this technology that we found that maybe for like, 60, 70 plus years, it could have helped the world. It could have helped us with science. It could have helped us with medicine. It could have helped us, prevent certain things from happening. That would be very somber. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, or do you have any insight on what that might be? Or is it all just speculation? That's fine.
Well, imagine a case in that everything you've ever been taught at school, been told by your parents, seen on TV, taught about the world from science shows, to religion or anything like that. Now think for a moment, what about if a lot of it just was not true? Your understanding of the history of humanity and our species, the essence of science, free to religion. What about if that wasn't technically correct in some of the key details, let's say. I think that's quite interesting because that's, what some would suggest. And I would say, look, if you've seen the movie Oppenheimer, it was like every week or every month or so, there was a major physics breakthrough. And new stuff just kept on being discovered, basically. And then what happened was the nuclear bomb was created, and then just everything got put underground with the Atomic Energy Commission. Now it's all the Department of Energy, basically, and all the top physicians and stuff, all the top physics guys, basically, have to sign NDAs and stuff like that, and all of a sudden they can't talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, really interesting. And then you've got to look at what Eric Weinstein has said, basically, saying that, it seems as though that if you go back to the 1950s, and Nick Cook says this as well, great British guy who used to work for Jane's Defence, said that, look, in the 1950s, it was like we were on the brink of discovering, like, anti-gravitics, and it seems like it'd be a really, really big thing. We're on the brink of discovering this new technology. It's going to happen any time now. And then everything went dark. Everything went under.
Yeah.
And one of the key researchers behind that was Ed Witten's dad. So Ed Witten is kind of like the titan of the physics community, basically, and the guy who's been the main vocal advocate behind string theory. And Weinstein would perhaps argue, saying that, look, well, maybe like string theory isn't correct, and maybe it's just been a giant waste of time for the scientific community. A lot of the funding's gone there, a lot of the research's gone there, a lot of the best minds have gone there, but hasn't really discovered anything that's really kind of like helped benefited us, basically, in terms of, coming to fruition from technologies and stuff like that. And I think like that's, I may have butchered his argument there, but that's kind of like the cusp, that's kind of like what he's basically saying. So, what if basically, like, since, the late 40s, there's been another technology tree that's, not public, that's been kept within the Department of Energy and, the defense industries, basically, another understanding of, like, physics, let's say. And I think that's quite interesting, I think that's really interesting. And you think to yourself, like, it wasn't so long ago when you had To the Stars Academy, in the former Skunkworks guy, Steve Justice, basically saying that he was going to create a craft, an anti-gravitic craft, you could argue. And, okay, this guy isn't crazy, this guy is very, very high up in Lockheed, at Skunkworks. Okay, and now he works for Virgin Galactic, and like he's the head guy there, and now in terms of engineering, he's not a crazy guy. He seems to be doing very well for himself at Virgin now. Doesn't seem to be the guy who's saying, I'm going to create like a spaceship that's going to have all this amazing technology. And by the way, I don't know what I'm talking about. I've lost my mind. It's complete rubbish. He's not that kind of person, And I don't know. It just makes you like, if you do a mental exercise, and you think about it logically, you think, well, this doesn't really stack up here. What about like another kind of like understanding in terms of physics and, maybe other stuff to go with that as well in terms of whether they discovered non-human technology and made other, let's say, discoveries in terms of what humanity is and our place in the world and stuff, or our place in the universe. I don't know, it just makes you think, because, there may be a lot of things that we don't know about, which is kind of like they do have knowledge about within the intelligence communities, within the DoD and within the DOE as well. So, that's my, that's kind of like my thoughts on it, basically. Yeah, but these are all and stuff. This is all speculation, but I just find it interesting, just kind of like thinking about it,
Yeah, and that you just reminded me again of Jeremy Corbell's most recent interview with Chris Cuomo. He also was talking about with the sources that he knows of people that are working within the program, I guess the UAP program. Now, he was saying he has some friends in there too that they don't want the information coming out. They're like, friends with him, but they're like, we don't want it coming out. And he's like, oh, well, that's not up for you to decide, you know? Like, it's not up to you to decide if we all can know that. Because, like, I wonder if it's something, if that might be a sombering thing too, is just, you know, just a whole, knowledge is power, you know? So if it's just because of power, you know?
Yeah. So I think it might be a matter of just how far we go, you know. From my assessment, I mean, the most likely thing at the moment is that they'll just basically declare there's something of unknown origin, which we don't completely understand. We need to open up these programs. So that's like the conservative option. The less conservative option, obviously, is basically saying it's of non-human intelligence. So you basically have an event of like confirmation, basically. But then, like, how far do you go from there, you know? Let's say you get the resources working on these craft and these programs. Do you go any further? I don't know. Maybe that's kind of like up for grabs at the moment in terms of how far do we go beyond confirmation. Do you go into specifics? I don't know. I really don't know. I think that stuff might be up for grabs, perhaps.
Yeah. I wonder too, because it feels like such a, it feels like it's a slow burn, but like the burn is so great, like you can't really stop it. So I know there's pushback, but almost some of this pushback that's happening, even if it's like Mike Turner trying to stop another hearing or whatever, it almost feels like it's a cup of water throwing on a fire, like just going, all right, that'll stop it. Keep throwing cups of water on it, you know? Like that's what it just seems so out of like it seems so it's just happening so exponentially, you know, like just that I don't know how they're gonna stop more people from coming forward, because that's the thing too, is like the more and more someone like a person comes forward, I know they're trying to make a warning for other whistleblowers with David Grush, but again, like the way they went about it, like the old guard kind of thing again to bring up, but like they brought up that he had PTSD, you know, or PTS, but like, okay, yeah, he already talked about that. Cool. So he had PTSD, and he said that people should get help and seek the help that they need. Okay, so, you know, if that's pushback against David Grush, like what, maybe in the what, like the, I don't know, 50 years ago that might have worked, but like how old are these people that are like trying to, because that almost gave him more credibility, because then people look him up and they're like, oh, we talked about it, and he said people should get the mental help they need and should get the help they need and like seek help for it because I did and I'm better now. And I just thought that was so awesome of him, you know? And so like, you know, people were kind of worried about, oh, that's pushback. I mean, maybe it's a warning to other whistleblowers like, hey, we got dirt on you. So, you know, David Grush doesn't have a lot of dirt. This is what we're showing that he had. So if you guys come forward, we're going to, you know, your whole, you know, whatever, come forward with a bunch of stuff. So they're all scared or something, but I don't know. Just
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It's very difficult to find dirt on David, to be fair. I've heard that he's like very, very squeaky clean, and he's such a nice guy as well, from my understanding. So absolutely, brother, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's what it is. Really, it was just kind of like a warning shot or something. Like you guys don't come forward. We know your search history, and we're gonna let everyone know. You know, or something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like these things are very, very kind of like. I looked at the FOIA request, and I spoke to the county sheriff's department, and it's basically the guy did 3 FOIAs, 2 for exact addresses where David lived at, and another basically saying that do you have anything on his exact name. You know, and then he obviously found information about his family history, his marriage, and stuff like that with it as well. And I think it's like more that, you know, we're going to come after your addresses, we will look into your history. You know, and it just showed, you know, that they are going to really dig and play dirty. They're going to ask for, a lot of journalists are willing in terms of being on side with the people doing the pushback, as we saw with Ken Klippenstein. So, I think that's more of like the message there. You know, we will look into your history, and we'll go out basically and try to muzzle you.
Yeah. And I encourage people that are just getting into the topic, to kind of just go back through the history of this, read kind of like what are, I'm talking R from the U.S. What our government has been involved with, what's come forward. Some people have come forward before. I'll probably post some of them so you guys can see them in the episode notes for this episode. Try to compile some stuff of people coming forward. Another great person is, we've had him on, is Sean Rosh of Witness Citizen. He'll go through government documents.
Great guy.
Sean's awesome. We have some mutual friends now, which is awesome, Christopher. Because can I call you? Is it Christopher or Chris? Do you go by Chris?
You can call me Chris. That's absolutely fine. By the way, I only have like 5% of battery. I'm so sorry.
Okay,
I should have.
That's fine. No, we've been talking for like an hour and a half anyway, dude. That's fine. I want everyone to go follow you. I want everyone to follow your work, Chris. And I want and thank you so much. I know, you want a better future for your kids. You want a better future for all of us. I can tell that through your work, and it's your work speaks volumes, my friend. Like, you do such a great job, and I'm going to keep following your work, and I'm going to tell more people about you. So really, just thank you for everything you've done. And that latest article you wrote, I'm going to put that up too, because that was just incredible. And that's a way to be caught up. Everyone could be caught up with what's going on. But have a great night, my friend. Have a great night.
Brother, you've been so kind. You're such a kind person, and I love it, man. Let's do this again, yeah?
I would love to.
We'll do this again, and I will have 100% battery on my phone again.
Yeah.
Please. I really enjoyed this. Let's do it again. Let's arrange something else, yeah? Get in touch. Let's get in touch in the next 2 weeks or so. Let's arrange something else, okay?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, you have a good night, and thanks for doing this.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.